Desire is not the problem, it is the signal. What is labeled bad is only the desire that hasn't been held, heard, or integrated. You were never built to eradicate longing, you were built to reconcile it. The hunger you hide is not malfunction, it is message. A part of your soul speaking in need and memory, asking to be returned home. This truth changes everything. Because when we believe desire is bad, we don't tame it, we exile it. We cast it into shadows where it mutates, where it haunts our choices, pulses through our patterns, and distorts our presence. And nothing touches us less than the parts of us we refuse. So we repress, we judge, we perform, and we fracture. But the moment you understand there is no bad desire, only unintegrated, and everything shifts. When you begin to reintegrate desire, it stops ruling you. It begins to teach you. It becomes your blueprint, your code, your compass. You feel it surfacing in the body, in the mind, in the spirit. And rather than pushing it down, you breathe with it. You listen, you ask, what are you showing me? What calling are you pointing me toward? And then you go to work. You go to the wound beneath the hunger. You go to the pain beneath the craving. You ask real questions. What misbelief sits beneath this longing? What unclaimed part of me is asking to be seen? You don't act or suppress, you understand. You hold your fire with tenderness, not repression. This is the path of integration. You discover that every fire awakens something deeper, your purpose, something brighter, your vision, something more aligned, your integrity. Mindset shifts. You stop seeing discipline as denial and begin to see it as stewardship. Clarity replaces confusion. Direction subsumes chaos. Belief evolves. You believe not in purity, but in wholeness. You believe not that desire must be extinguished, but that it can elevate you, shape you into someone who lives not from fear, but from centered freedom. Vision expands. Your creativity awakens. You see how your unfiltered longings can fuel purpose. Your hunger becomes your curriculum. Your ache becomes your art. Purpose ignites, not performing what is expected, but being what is inevitable. Your life becomes a conduit of integration, not of escape. Discipline becomes devotion, not restraint from desire, but comfort with its heat. You don't punish yourself for wanting, you align with your wanting. You direct it. You don't throttle passions, they become your fuel. Action becomes alignment. You act not to placate cravings, but to channel their intelligence. You move with purpose, not panic. Gratitude becomes radical. You don't thank God that you don't want. You thank God that you do, that you've been given an echo of divinity within. You celebrate the rawness of your being. Adaptability flows. Unintegrated desire breaks you. Integrated desire builds you. You grow because your fire flexes, not fractures, within your container of self-awareness. Resilience roots deeper. When you welcome every part of your longing, wounds are no longer cracks. They are footholds. You stand tall because no desire can pull you into darkness. You grip insight instead. Learning becomes your life's rhythm. You don't just educate your mind, you educate your desire. Every want becomes a teacher. Every impulse a professor. And every nuance begins to write your legend. At the end of it all, your life stands not as a series of temptations conquered, but as a tapestry of longings that have been heard, held, and transmuted into testimony. You are no longer walking away from what feels wrong. You are walking through what once felt forbidden, unearthing its divine allocation, because there is no bad desire, only desire in exile. And exile kills, integration liberates. So you welcome the ache, you release the shame, you let the fire instruct you. And when the world sees you, they don't just see control, they see coherence, not denial, but devotion, not suppression, but sanctuary. This is the revolution, not in refraining, but in reintegration. Exit the prison of judgment, step into the palace of presence. Let every longing be your lantern to wholeness. You don't need to restrain desire, you need to reinstate it. Not as threat, but as teacher. not as enemy, but as evidence of your immense being. Your desire declares, I am here. Come home. Let it. So here you are standing in the center of your life, flame in hand, no longer hiding. Your wounds remain, but they no longer whisper shame. They pulse with wisdom. Your longings burn not as invitations to chaos, but as calls to wholeness. This is not the death of your desire. It is its resurrection. Through integration, what once fragmented you now formed you. Every section of your being mindset, clarity, adaptability, resilience has been sanctified by this journey. Your purpose beats in rhythm with your pulse. Your vision glows in resonance with your voice. Tonight, you no longer pray for control. You pray for coherence, not to bury your hunger, but to build with its heat, because now your desire unfolds your destiny. It calls you not into wilderness or wandering, but into selfhood, not into noise or blind scripts, but into narrative, not into bondage, but into becoming. This is the gift you carry, a sacred invitation to return, to restore, to rise, because, there is no bad desire, only desire misplaced, only longing unled, only hunger unhoused, and you have housed every part of yourself, not in shame, but in sovereignty. So you walk forward, not perfect, not purified of humanity, but perfectly human, made holy by the integration of your longing, made strong by the reclamation of your flame. Take it with you, carry it into the world. Let your life stand as proof. When desire is no longer judged, but joined, your existence becomes an altar where every longing, every ache, every want is turned into holy fire. You are not broken. You are becoming, and in this becoming, every step is revelation. So burn clearly, live bravely, love deeply, for there is nothing left to kill, only everything left to rise. This is your reckoning, your resurrection, your return to yourself, to purpose, to power. Let them see. And as you walk deeper into this becoming, you begin to notice something strange. Stillness no longer feels like absence. It feels like arrival. You are no longer grasping for someone else to name you. You are naming yourself. And in that naming, you reclaim every part of your story that was edited to make others comfortable. You no longer cut off pieces of your truth just to fit into spaces not built for you. You no longer apologize for being lit from within by questions, by instincts, by longings too wild to domesticate. Your fire is not a flaw. It is your invitation to depth, to discernment, to destiny. So you stop taming your thoughts. You stop taming your speech. You stop taming your movements to appease the invisible judges that were never meant to hold your fate. You start asking better questions. Not, will they accept me? But am I still honoring the truth inside me? Not, is this normal? But, is this real for me? And in every answer, you become more fluent in the language of your own liberation. You move from reaction to response, from craving to creation, from survival to sovereignty. And those who cannot understand this shift, those who still need you small, digestible, tame, they will call you selfish. They will call you cold. They will call you distant. But they don't see it clearly. You are not pulling away. You are rising out of codependency, out of compliance, out of the silence that was never yours to keep. You are no longer waiting for approval to become who you already are. You are becoming because it is time. And when it is time, not even your past can stop you. The echoes of who you once were, the people pleaser, the self-doubter, the one who swallowed truth for the sake of harmony, they may still whisper, but they no longer rule. You've dethroned them with awareness. You've dismantled them with clarity. You've disarmed them with presence. Now, you no longer ask for the world to validate your becoming. You simply become, not loudly, not to be seen, but because your soul refuses anything less than full expression. You begin to build rituals from what once felt like resistance. You find rhythm in what once felt like rupture. You breathe into the spaces where you used to hold your breath for fear of taking up too much. But now, too much is no longer a curse. It is your currency. Too much honesty, too much fire, too much clarity for anyone still committed to confusion. You live there now in the realm beyond repression, beyond permission, beyond performance. And you are not reckless with this freedom. You are responsible, not in the way the world taught you, but in the deeper, sacred way of being a steward of your own aliveness. You hold your desire like a vessel holds wine, not spilling, not hoarding, but serving. You give from your center, not your scarcity. You speak from your core, not your conditioning. You lead with your essence, not your ego. And from that place, from that holy alignment, you begin to realize this isn't just your liberation, it's your offering. Because what you reclaim within yourself does not stay confined to yourself. Your integration becomes a quiet revolution, a frequency that ripples through the lives you touch, disrupting the patterns of repression with the evidence of someone who no longer lives in fragments. You don't need to preach your transformation. You embody it. You don't need to argue your path. You walk it, and in your walking, others remember. Not because you force them, but because your wholeness reminds them of the home they've been aching to return to. You become a mirror, not of perfection, but of permission. You show them that desire doesn't need to be feared, that longing doesn't need to be disguised, that the soul is not meant to be obedient, but true. And this is what terrifies the world that profits from your guilt. Someone who is no longer confused about who they are. You are no longer available for roles written by people who never understood your language. You are no longer participating in dynamics that require the betrayal of your fire to keep the peace. Your presence now says, I will not burn myself down to make you comfortable, because you have built something sacred within you. And sacred things are not offered cheaply. You've reclaimed every corner of your being. Your mind is no longer a battlefield. Your body is no longer a battleground. Your spirit is no longer in exile. They are one whole, integrated, and that integration, it speaks louder than any doctrine. It heals deeper than any apology. It liberates further than any permission ever could. So you stand not as a perfected being, but as a reclaimed one. And that is more than enough, because enough is not a measurement anymore. It is a knowing. You no longer weigh yourself against expectation. You no longer measure your worth by what you produce, or who approves, or what remains quiet enough to avoid disruption. Now you know you were never meant to be quiet. You were meant to resonate, to echo the voice of the divine, not in whispers of obedience, but in thunderous declarations of truth. And the truth is this: you didn't come here to be tame, you came here to be transcendent, not by floating above your desire, but by descending into it, finding its roots, unearthing its origin, turning it not into spectacle, but structure. You are structure now, a cathedral of clarity, a sanctuary for the sacred things that once scared you. You are no longer afraid of what you feel. You are formed by it. This is what maturity means. Not the death of fire, but the capacity to carry it without setting your life ablaze. You no longer confuse numbness with peace. You no longer confuse silence with strength. You no longer confuse self-erasure with love. You know better, so you live better. And this living is not always pretty, but it's always true. And that truth, it's the final rebellion, not against the world, but against the lie that you ever needed to become anyone other than who you are. You are not becoming, you have arrived, not at a destination, but at a frequency, a state of being that no longer bends to the comfort of conformity. You've stopped negotiating your soul in back alleys of approval. You've stopped trading your voice for a seat at tables where silence is the cost of belonging. Now you bring your own table, and if no one sits beside you, you feast anyway, because the banquet of self-respect is not dependent on company. It is sustained by alignment. And this alignment isn't loud. It isn't flamboyant. It's quiet. It's unwavering. It's the stillness in your spine when you walk away from what no longer honors your truth. You know what it is now to want something without shame, to say yes without shrinking, to say no without guilt. You don't justify. You don't explain. You embody. And that embodiment radiates. It doesn't beg to be seen. It commands to be felt. Because the world may still not understand your fire, but it will never again extinguish it. You have made yourself your own sanctuary, your own compass, your own covenant. You walk not in the shadows of judgment, but in the light of integration. This is not the end. This is the revelation, the unveiling, the final silence after the scream that broke the chains. There is no going back, only forward. And forward is the only direction desire ever truly wanted to go. And forward means wholeness, not perfection, not performance, not posture, just presence, raw, real, rooted. You no longer hustle for a feeling of being alive. You are alive, not chasing stimulation, but moving with soul, not escaping discomfort, but facing it with devotion. Because everything in you that once felt like too much was simply waiting to be claimed. Your sensitivity now, your compass, your longing now, your oracle, your intensity now, your signature. You wear it not like armor, but like royalty. Not to dominate, but to define. You no longer ask the world to soften your edges. You found softness within them, and now you're not led by the craving for answers. You are led by attunement, by how it feels in your bones, by what aligns without explanation, by what calls without condition. You've become fluent in the language of resonance, not logic, not legacy, not lineage, but the deep electric truth of what sets your soul on fire. And you listen to that fire, not because it's comfortable, but because it's consecrated. Your life is no longer a reaction to your wounds. It's a reflection of your wisdom. You are the keeper of your flame now. And no one, no past, no system, no relationship holds the match. Only you. And now that the match is yours, you don't strike it recklessly. You ignite it with intention. You know that fire can destroy, but in your hands, it illumines, it warms the space you occupy, clarifies the path you walk, and cauterizes the places where you once bled quietly, just to be loved. You are done bleeding for belonging, done shrinking for safety, done editing the divine out of your desires so others don't feel uncomfortable in their forgetfulness. You've remembered that the sacred was never sterile. That wholeness was never about polishing your soul into something palatable. That your divinity was always tied to your wildness, to your instinct, to your age, to the parts of you that never fit the mold because they were never meant to. You walk now in holy disobedience, not to rebel, but to return. Return to your original truth. Return to the self before it was separated by shame. Return to the rhythm that doesn't rush, but resonates. And in that return, you move without apology. You no longer seek the approval of the asleep when your entire being has awakened. They may still not understand, but you do. And that is all that matters now. You stop seeking translation, because truth doesn't need to be translated. It only needs to be trusted. You don't explain your alignment to those committed to misunderstanding it. You don't unwrap your evolution for those still clutching the past. You move forward, not because you've escaped them, but because you've outgrown the language of fragmentation. Your time of convincing is over. You no longer audition for intimacy. You no longer pay for understanding. You've become the understanding. The mirror no longer reflects what you've been told to see. It reflects what you've remembered to be. And in this memory, you hold both your shadow and your flame with the same reverence. You no longer exile the parts of you that scared others. You welcome them. You sit with them. You give them a name and a place at the table. This table is your life now, set with the silverware of sovereignty, lit by the candle of clarity, filled with the feast of everything you once thought you had to deny in order to be worthy. You eat freely now. You drink deeply, not to numb, but to nourish. Because this life, this wild, aching, beautiful life, was never meant to be endured. It was meant to be embraced, fully, fiercely, finally. You don't flinch anymore at the sound of your own voice. You speak, not to be heard, but because silence is no longer an option. What once trembled now resonates. What once hid now leads. And what once needed fixing now stands as sacred. You've alchemized your ache. You've honored your hunger. You've integrated the impulse. Desire no longer drags you. It guides you not as a tyrant, but as a teacher. This is what it means to grow beyond the binary of shame and indulgence. To walk the edge where fire becomes forge, not flame out. To live in rhythm with your pulse, not in reaction to your punishment. You are no longer defined by what you deny. You are shaped by what you steward. You hold your truth like water in cupped hands, not forcing, not hoarding, not fearing the spill, just trusting the flow. And in that trust, you've built something no one can dismantle, not even the version of you that once begged to be broken. Because now, you know, desire is not the devil you feared. It's the doorway you refused, the sacred path that never needed to be tamed, only understood. And now that you understand it, you do not run from it. You walk with it. You walk with it like an old friend, not because it owes you answers, but because it has always been one. You no longer treat desire like a test of your will. You treat it like a reunion, a long-awaited embrace between the self you perform and the self you've buried. And as you walk, you realize this path isn't paved by perfection. It's paved by presence, by showing up again and again, not to conquer yourself, but to claim yourself. There is no final form, no enlightenment where all desire dissolves into stillness. That was a myth sold by those who feared their own fire. You don't want to be above desire. You want to be within it, anchored, awake, and unashamed. Because integrated desire doesn't lead to chaos. It leads to clarity. You can love without losing yourself. You can crave without collapsing. You can feel deeply and still choose wisely. Not by repression, but by reverence. And this reverence, it reshapes everything. You make decisions not from lack, but from legacy. You create not from desperation, but from depth. You connect not from fear, but from frequency. You stop trying to edit your aliveness. Now you honor it, you guard it, you share it with care. And in doing so, you become untouchable in the way that matters most. not unreachable, but unshakable, top of form, bottom of form. You've stepped beyond the reach of manipulation, not because you've hardened, but because you've clarified. There's a knowing in your eyes now, not arrogance awareness, not distance discernment. You feel everything, but you're no longer moved by every impulse. You hear every voice, but you no longer listen to every fear. You notice every opportunity, but you only walk through doors that are shaped like your truth. And that truth, it's not a set of rules. It's not an inherited code. It's a frequency, a vibration you've calibrated through fire and silence, through hunger and healing. You don't need to defend it. You live it, you breathe it, you radiate it. It's in the way you choose, in the way you pause, in the way you move through rooms with the grace of someone who doesn't owe anyone performance. You've traded the performance for presence. And presence, true integrated presence, cannot be faked. It cannot be rushed. And it cannot be bought. You've earned this stillness, not by avoiding the fire, but by walking through it with your head high and your heart open. So you walk now, not with fear behind you, but with purpose beneath you. And everywhere you go, the world feels it, because now you are the world's quiet disruption. You are what happens when someone stops running from themselves and starts returning. You are no longer waiting for a sign. You are the sign, no longer looking for a map. You are the terrain, no longer chasing light. You are the source. Your journey is not finished, but it is claimed, and that makes all the difference. You will still feel. You will still ache. You will still long, but you will never again confuse that longing with lack. You will never again see your desire as a defect, because now desire is your compass, your clarity, your consecration. You do not walk in fear of being too much. You walk in the knowing that your fullness is the very miracle you came here to embody. And if the world doesn't understand that, so be it. You're not here to be understood. You're here to be aligned, to live, to burn, to bless, to stand in the mirror of your own truth and say, I am whole, I am holy, I am home.